Hi and welcome to Asian Photography's YouTube channel. My name is Bhavya Desai and today is all about the Canon M50. So the M50 was launched about a month back and we've been using it for some time now. In many ways the M50 is actually a breakthrough for Canon. The reason is because one, it seems as if Canon is finally listening to its consumer, or probably they've realized the consumer is the king, or number two is that they've finally started taking the whole mirrorless segment really seriously. So the focus of this video actually will not really be reviewing the M50 like the traditional reviews that we do. In this edition, we will actually be focusing on understanding whether the Canon M50 is a perfect or the best YouTuber camera or a best vlogging camera yet. So this is our review of the same. So we had a good elaborate plan to check the M50 outside in the outdoors, but so before we actually take a look at exactly what a YouTuber needs in a camera, it's important to just see the quick specs of the M50. First things first, the M50 is powered by a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, and it is also the first camera in the Canon portfolio to use the Digic 8 processor. Incidentally, it also uses 4K and features 4K video recording capability, which a lot of consumers have been asking for a while, and finally Canon has caved and given it in the M50. This is also the second camera in the Canon's mirrorless lineup after the M5 to actually have an electronic viewfinder. So what exactly does a YouTuber or a vlogger need from his camera? Now these are the things that we basically feel are best suited and required for good vlogging. One, a good compact and handy body. Two, good video recording capability. Three, a good battery life. Fourth, image stabilization. Fifth, the shooting format, since a lot of shooting takes a lot of space in the memory card. And sixth, the overall performance of the camera. So in terms of the body design and structure, the M50 is very compact and handy. In terms of weight, it only weighs 387 grams, honestly. And this is very important for a vlogger and a YouTuber. The reason is because when you're shooting outside for a long period of time, and especially if the camera is mounted on a gorilla pod or a monopod, it can be a little cumbersome to carry it for long times. As for the overall feel, I mean, I wish that I would have, Canon would have had a little bit bigger in terms of the rubberized grip on the right, especially since for someone like me who has a little bigger hands. But overall, the grip is very comfortable and definitely the camera feels extremely light. Now, if you see the other portions of the camera, for instance, the top of the camera, then it only features one dial, which is one mode dial. Now, this clearly shows where Canon is trying to target this camera to. This camera is purely targeted towards amateurs who are looking for something which is lightweight, compact and handy to shoot. In fact, in terms of the buttons as well, they're really tiny, but I really love the feel of it. They're very clicky and they feel sturdy and ergonomical, easily accessible with like one thumb all the way on the right hand side, and that overall gives me a very good feel of the M50. Now, as mentioned before, this is the second camera in the Canon lineup to actually feature the electronic viewfinder after the M5. It features a 2.36 million dots electronic viewfinder, and honestly, if you're looking for a lot of vlogging and making videos, then the electronic viewfinder might not be of great help. But considering that you will definitely use this camera for shooting stills as well, especially with its low light capability, the electronic viewfinder actually is pretty decent. It's slightly contrasty, but overall it's pretty decent. The advent of smart devices and smartphones have really spoilt us. You know, anything which we see which is touch enabled, we actually want it to be extremely fast, extremely intuitive, and that is something which has probably not really percolated well when it comes to cameras today. But in the last few months, in the last 6 or 7 months, if you notice, a lot of the cameras these days are trying to adapt a touch-enabled screen with a user interface which are probably closer to smart devices. And in the M50 as well, this is really nice. I found the user interface very clean, very simple to operate, which again speaks volumes about whom it's being targeted to, and it definitely benefits from being extremely fast and intuitive as well. Overall, the screen brightness is pretty good in daylight conditions. This is important to a lot of vloggers and YouTubers because they tend to shoot a lot outside, and if the screen brightness gets a little dim, then they don't realize what they're shooting. So the M50 actually has a touch-enabled screen, which is a 3-inch tiltable screen. It is powered using a resolution of 1.4 million dots, and it is extremely good. As you can see, I'm actually using this as a selfie sort of a cam. It is stuck on a monopod and attached with a mic. It gives me the idea and the option to actually touch the screen as well to figure out if I want to change the focus. So at this point of time, it's actually quite convenient and quite handy. So as you can see, the rain is actually beating down on us, and this basically is the mic test to give you a little bit of an idea. And by the way, that's Mrinmay Chaudhary, who's actually just bombarded and photobombed our frame. So, so this is what it sounds like with and without the mic. So all this while I've actually been shooting a little bit with the mic, and now I'm actually going to remove the mic so that you'll be able to give an idea. Now we've shifted onto the camera and the output of the camera. So if you're not very interested in using an external mic in order to shoot your videos or your vlogs, then this is what the output of the sound will be. Of course, bear in mind, this is not a very noisy sort of a situation. This is a fairly quiet environment, but as we mentioned before, that unfortunately the weather gods have not been very kind to us, and that's the reason why we have to do this more in such sort of a location. So video capability of any camera is very important to a YouTuber or a vlogger. The reason is because they use a lot of shots and they keep on shooting regularly. Now the M50 is the first camera in the Canon lineup to shoot 4K, and this shoots it at 24 frames per second. But while it shoots 4K, it does tend to have certain limitations. For example, when it shoots 4K, it actually adds a 1.7x crop to the sensor, and also the dual pixel image stabilization unfortunately does not work in this mode. Now we feel this probably could be because the AF system when working in 4K might be heating up the camera, which is the reason why it has been auto disabled in this mode. When it comes to shooting regular videos, the camera is capable of shooting full HD videos at 60 frames per second, and in this mode it also uses face detection. The actual power of the Digic 8 processor is seen in this category because the camera is able to focus on the subjects really well, and with a touchscreen it allows you to touch enable any area that you want to focus on. As seen in this video, whenever we are shooting in a selfie mode and we are clicking on the faces, then it actually is able to track that really fast, and overall in this department the M50 is genuine aces. The M50 uses the CR3 format when it comes to shooting RAW. Now RAW ideally takes a lot of space when you're vlogging or when you're YouTubing, but with the new CR3 format, the videos are close to 30 to 40% smaller in terms of size and tend to take a lot lesser space in your memory card, which is a definite and a welcome change for any vlogger or YouTuber. Now, as important the video capability of the camera is, it's equally important the image stabilization. Now, in case of the M50, the image stabilization basically works in two ways. One is the optical image stabilization, which usually is always part of every lens in the Canon portfolio, and in the M series as well, most of these lenses definitely have that. Apart from this, the camera itself also has a digital image stabilization, which basically works in the combination with optical image stabilization of the lens to give you the best output. So we've given you a video and an idea about how both the with image stabilization, without image stabilization the output is, and you can clearly tell the difference. So there are certain things that surely could have been better in the M50. For example, the battery life. We didn't think the battery life was that great, and that is something that Canon definitely needs to improve on. And number two is that no USB charging. Now in these days, especially when a YouTuber or a vlogger, or even generally if you're using the camera to shoot a lot outside, it always tends to take the battery away because you're using a lot of the screen plus you're shooting continuously. Now in this case, it comes in very handy when the camera can be charged with a micro USB charging port. Unfortunately in this case that is not an option, which means that you'll have to carry the extra batteries if in case you want to use them. Now the next thing is the limited lens lineup. Of course, Canon is continuously working on bringing some of the best lenses to the mirrorless format, but at this point of time that lens lineup is fairly limited. On top of that, if you already have a lens portfolio from Canon, then you can choose the optional adapter, which basically opens up the world of Canon lenses to you. But at this point of time, from this perspective, it does seem a little limited. The next is the bezels in the screen. The first thing that you notice about the back of the screen in the M50 is its beautiful 3-inch display or the 3-inch screen. Now, as big as the screen looks visually, for some reason, it doesn't really take the best advantage of that real estate. For example, when you look at the screen, there's a certain amount of bezels, especially on the right-hand corner, which you can see could have possibly been used in a much better manner, which would overall just make things visually even more beautiful. The low FPS speed when it comes to slow motion is also something which could have been worked on. For instance, it shoots slow-mo at 120 frames per second, which probably doesn't allow you to slow things down a lot. For example, if you see a lot of videos that most people shoot either on any of the social media platforms or on YouTube, the slow motion is used so dramatically in order to create an impact in a video. Now, that can only be possible when your frame rates are very high, because it will actually give you an idea of panning. But in this case, when we tested the slow-mo, it was at 120 frames per second, which is not slow enough to give you an impactful result. So another thing that we really didn't like basically was the fact that the mic input really gets in the way of the tilting screen. For example, as you can see in this video, every time you try to shoot, especially either in the selfie mode or for example, even when you're shooting something from behind, it is very difficult when you swivel the screen. Every time when you want to turn the screen, then the mic jack basically comes in between the screen, which means you have to remove it and then put it back. Another challenge that we see for the consumer is probably the price bracket. At Rs 61,995 with the 1545 lens, we feel that this might be a little pricey in this segment. Considering that there are a lot of options in this price segment, that might be slightly a challenge. The overall performance of the M50 is quite good, and the chances are that if you're going to buy this camera, then you're definitely going to use it for stills as well. So when we checked the camera and reviewed it when it came to that mode, the overall image quality of the camera is quite decent. The images are sharp and crisp in daylight conditions. It also is capable of producing the colors accurately. In fact, in terms of the low light performance, that was quite a surprise. For a camera of this size, it actually delivers very good low light performance because images shot up to ISO 6400 we found were pretty usable. And if you want more information on what the overall review of the camera was, then make sure that you read our review in the June edition of Asian Photography magazine, where we've taken the camera through in-depth paces in order to give you the actual results of those. So what are our overall thoughts and verdict on the Canon M50? Priced at Rs 61,995, coming with a 1545 kit lens, the camera is actually a refreshing change to see in this category. It's like someone at Canon suddenly decided that, look, let's take all of our best features and fit it into the M50. And if that would have been the case, then definitely this is one of those cameras. Yes, there are certain things that could have been better. For example, its battery life or the expanded 4K capability, which would also support image stabilization. But apart from that, it delivers a very good overall performance. So does this qualify as a great or a good vlogging or a YouTubing camera? It definitely does. It is compact, it is handy, it is lightweight, gives you good output and a great performance. So if you've been basically looking for a camera which you want to start your vlogs with or shoot a lot with, then this is definitely a camera you should go for. And if you like our video, then make sure that you like, share and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, happy viewing.